Good afternoon, everybody, and a massive welcome to Google Digital Garage on this Thursday afternoon. I hope everyone's well, and thank you so much for tuning in. We've got a great session ahead, great hour ahead for you on building engaging presentations. So I need to make sure that I'm going to build you an engaging presentation as we work through. My name is Glenn, and I'm a trainer for Google's free skills training program, Google Digital Garage. I'm an experienced digital skills trainer, and I've got a good background in working with management and consultancy, helping businesses to grow. And really identifying opportunities based on the online era that we're now in, and really helping businesses and individuals capitalize on the technology that's available. Presentations have been a big part of my past. I've done quite a few now in many different settings. So I'm really hoping that I can add a bit of value to your presentations this afternoon, to this webinar session. So I hope everything's working all right for everybody. I'd like to introduce our moderator in the chat, which is the wonderful Joanne. Now, Joanne is part of the Google Digital Garage. She's a very experienced trainer as well. She's going to be interacting with you. She's going to be talking to you throughout the session in the chat, which hopefully you're going to be able to find on the right hand side of your screen or underneath, depending on what device you're actually on. So please do ask any questions that you might have of Jo as well. We will have a couple of pauses for questions throughout the session, but Jo's going to be there. She's going to be answering your sessions as we go, and making sure make the best use of time today. So I can see a few people already saying hello in the chat. Fabian Steen or Fabian Stein, welcome to you. Giovanni Candela, hello to you. Arena Fanay, hello to you as well. Tech Rohan, welcome. Welcome along, everybody. Fantastic that you're here. Please do pop into the chat. Oh, Tan Ciel as well. Hi, I've seen you on a few sessions as well, Tan. Please do pop into the chat what you'd like to get out of the session this afternoon, what's drawn you to the session. Perhaps you're about to do some presentations yourself, or you're looking at a new way in order to build presentations. We'd love to know. And again, it really helps us when we interact in these sessions to understand where people are at and really what it is that they're looking to gain. So I can see Kolobong, good afternoon to you, and Igbafi Samuel, good afternoon to you as well. So welcome along, everybody. Before we get going, if you're having any difficulties in terms of vision or sound at the moment, then please do just refresh your browser. That usually clears up most of the issues. It's that age-old adage, I think, in tech, is if it doesn't work, switch it off and restart it, and it should be fine. Yeah, lots of people joining the session. Pulak Sarkar, hello, and welcome to you as well. Now, I did mention about joining the instant chat. We'd love for you to get involved. I can see a lot of people are doing that. Thank you so much. If you can't see the instant chat, you might need to sign into your YouTube account, or if you don't have a YouTube account, maybe consider signing up for one. One of the great things about having a YouTube account is it keeps track of your history of all the things that you're watching. If you do something halfway through, there's a history function on there as well, which means you can just go back and pick up from where you left off. Something good for this session too is this session is going to be available for the next 24 hours or so. So if you need to revisit any of the sections, run through any of the information again, you've got the full opportunity to do that. So please make use of the YouTube, sign in. The YouTube, you know, that big YouTube, which is such an amazing platform. Again, one of the great platforms we will be discussing in terms of where you can broadcast some of the presentations you might be thinking about making yourself. Now, this webinar session is part of a much broader offering of webinars that are available from Google Digital Garage. That's g.co/digital garage. I'm sure Jo won't mind just popping that link into chat. Marianne, I'm glad you got your sound sorted out. You had 2 videos open. I was just thinking, I definitely got my tech set up okay, so I'm pretty sure I shouldn't be echoing. So I'm glad, Marianne, that you've got your tech all sorted there as well. Well done to you. Now, I was talking about Google Digital Garage. There's also some great training courses on there. Building engaging presentations is part of a much broader wave, perhaps, of how you might be marketing yourself, marketing your business, letting other people understand you and what you're about. If you go on to the Google Digital Garage site, as I say, that's g.co/digital garage. There are also some brilliant free training courses on there. They're no cost whatsoever. Fundamentals of Digital Marketing is a great course, 40-hour video learning course that will help you understand the fundamentals right the way across all of the concepts that are concerned with digital marketing. It's going to look great on your CV when you've completed it, because you can download and you can then obviously demonstrate a certificate that's endorsed from the Open University. Looks great on your LinkedIn profile too, if you've got one. Okay, so, hello to Danon Zahuri Arsene. Hi, Mr. Glenn. Well, hello to you as well, Danon. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get into the presentation now, and I'm just going to get my trusty clicker to help me along. So today we're going to be looking at how we craft and approach our presentations. Be aware of the uses of presentations and the fact we want to create a desired effect. Then in the second part of the presentation, we want to create those effective presentations, get our message across and really demonstrate the value of why we're doing a demonstration or a presentation in the first place. And then in the last section, the bit I think that is quite important to a lot of people is learning those essential presentation skills, gaining confidence, some of the tips that you can use to help you feel confident on screen or when you're getting prepared to go on screen or to stand up in front of lots of people. Okay, now, before we do get started, there is something I'd like you to alert you to. There are some free career certificates available from Google. If you go to goo.gle/career search UK, you can sign up for some of these Google career certificates. They're giving you the ability to improve your job ready skill set. So there's some great courses on UX design, on digital marketing, on technical support. So if you're looking to access one of those careers in the future, sign up, have a look at that site, see if that's suitable for you. And again, that will be at no cost as long as you're eligible to do so. So please do. Again, that's goo.gle/career search UK. All right, so let's get into the webinar now and let's just have a look at what we're going to be covering. The first thing we're going to be looking at is a question for you. Please do pop your answers into the chat for me. What's the most memorable presentation that you've ever experienced? Now, there's lots and lots of different types of presentations. They could be at work, they could be on TV, they could be TED Talks. There are so many ways now that we experience presentations in one form or another, probably even more so during the lockdown period when we couldn't actually get out or meet people as we wanted to. A lot more demonstrations on screen going on. So let us know about your favorite presentation and maybe your least memorable or your least favorite presentation too. Now, I've had some great presentations demonstrated over the years. I do love the TED Talk site. There are so many talks on there. There are so many different styles of presentation. But, I like presentations that are engaging, obviously, that perhaps make me laugh, that are insightful, that really make me think, and where the presenter really knows what they're talking about. I've experienced a lot of those. I've experienced quite a lot from colleagues as well, people that I've worked with in the past who just have that style that keep you hooked throughout all of the time that you're watching them. So please do just let us know what you find good about presentations, a good one you've seen. And it's the same. If you've experienced a not so great presentation, think about what factors within that presentation just made you want to switch off. I'm sure we've all had a few of those in one way or another. Okay, so I'm going to move on. I'm a little bit ahead of you in time because this is a live webinar. So I'll pick up on some of the answers that Joe will put across for me, and I'll pick up on some of your answers as we go as well. Okay, so why do we present? Let's get right back to basics. Now, presentations are really being used to support the story the speaker is trying to tell. Presentations are stories, essentially. Why do we present? We want to communicate an idea. We want to communicate a notion. We want to communicate a concept. We want people perhaps to think in slightly different ways. We want to persuade people sometimes. We want to get up there, have our platform and let people know what's going on or alert them to a new way of doing something that might revolutionize their life. There are so many reasons as to why we're presenting. There could be instructions that we give too. I watch quite a lot of how-to videos on YouTube, which are great presentations, which help me to learn something that I couldn't do previously or couldn't do very well previously, in a step-by-step way. And that's really useful for consumers as well. So if you've perhaps got a business and you're looking to show your customers how to do something or get the most out of their products, perhaps you want to think about creating an instruction type video. So I can see quite a few answers coming in. I'm going to take a couple of seconds just to present on some of these. So Tech Rohan, my school farewell presentation. So that was evocative, maybe quite emotional as well. Thank you, Tech. So that's something that's stuck in your memory. That is fantastic. Ipsita Sina, a presentation I gave on menstrual hygiene management on Women's Day India is my most memorable. Fantastic. Again, a really important topic and something that clearly resonated with you. Joseph Arnold, a live presentation at a business seminar that Larry King did. Larry King. Okay, he's great. He's really very good at presentations. He used many stories to make his point, and there you go. Stories, storytelling. That is an important element of most presentations. We want to build up our audience and their appreciation of what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve up a gradient. We're working to achieve a momentum as we move along. Marianne Taylor, a speaker with a clear, positive, calm voice and a bright spirit. Excellent. A poor presentation with someone with a very fast, choppy, tense, or just an angry voice. Yeah, angry voices are perhaps not ideal, depending on what the purpose of the presentation was, of course, but that might not be ideal. You're absolutely right. And again, things that we all need to take in and perhaps analyze about ourselves when we're reviewing our presentations or practicing our presentations too. So on this note, we're going to move on to a video. What type of presentation is this? What are you going to take away from this presentation? There are lots of points to this, and it's a great one. Again, it's part of a TED talk from the TED site. See what you make of this presentation. It's very brief, so bear with me for a moment.
What you're doing right now at this very moment is killing you. More than cars or the internet, or even that little mobile device we keep talking about, the technology you're using the most almost every day is this, your tush. Nowadays, people are sitting 9.3 hours a day, which is more than we're sleeping at 7.7 hours. Sitting is so incredibly prevalent, we don't even question how much we're doing it. And because everyone else is doing it, it doesn't even occur to us that it's not okay. So instead of going to coffee meetings or fluorescent lit conference room meetings, I ask people to go on a walking meeting to the tune of 20 to 30 miles a week. It's changed my life. You'll be surprised at how fresh air drives fresh thinking. And in the way that you do, you'll bring into your life an entirely new set of ideas. Thank you.
Okay, so what a great presentation. So what I'm taking away from that is, a lot of us do have to have meetings, and what a great way to do it, rather than sat in a chair, which again is not great for us if we've been sitting in chairs too long all day. Go for a walk. It helps your health, it helps your fitness, it helps re-energize you, helps give you lots of fresh ideas. So that presentation is helping to persuade us perhaps to do something in a way that we've never thought of before. So there are many different ways for us to work with presentations and to help to influence our audience also. And that can be an important thing. What is it we want to achieve? We're going to be coming to that quite soon. So we can see here, we're not delivering a presentation, we're telling a story. Storytelling, again, is key. We want to organize our facts so that they're following a simple narrative. We want to keep each slide to a single idea, maybe. We'll build the ideas incrementally, as we say, up that incline, that building of momentum, so it's easy to follow. It's, in essence, really a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, there are some different types of story types available to us. You can see some demonstrated on the screen there. We've got origin, future vision, failure or success, or realization. So they're all the same story in essence, but they're positioned in different ways. Origin stories, I started my business with a laptop in my garage, and I've now got workspaces in 30 countries across the world. So that's how I started out. Future vision. My marketing business is growing. My goal is to have offices in 30 countries worldwide. So they're looking forward. That's what they want to achieve. The failure or success. My first couple of attempts at starting my marketing business failed as I didn't have the right target market. I learned from my mistake and now have offices in 30 countries across the world. So going deeper, giving us that insight of that perhaps things don't always go perfectly immediately. And then realization. A realization story is very powerful too. I've been in the finance industry for 15 years. When I went to a talk on marketing strategies and realized I wanted to start my own marketing company and expand into many different countries across the world. So there came the same concept expressed in very different ways. So think about your story, think about what it is that you would like to convey and perhaps how you would like to position it within one of those story types. Maybe if you want to drop a couple of demos of that into the chat for us as we work along, that would be fantastic to look at as well. So using story types, think about the story types we've just looked through there. Now, if we were going to be doing a budget report, very common type of presentation in the company, then maybe that might be a success or failure story. Learning points, perhaps what we tried to achieve, why we didn't get there, and what we need to do to improve moving forward to actually achieve our goals or our KPIs. There could be a company update. Now, an origin story could be interesting, especially for new people, so they understand how you got to where you are and what the significance is. They can be quite inspiring. I started this business from scratch. I started it in my garage. I started with some very basic equipment, and then as my success grew, I managed to upgrade and get myself whatever it is that I got as a consequence of my growing success. Then there's idea pitches. This could be a vision story, what the future looks like. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to achieve. Steve Jobs did a lot of those, in terms of positioning the iPhone and all of the other technology that grew over time that became so popular. The future looks like this. Idea pitches, again, are fantastic to really capture people's imagination. So what's the goal? Everyone needs to have a goal. Presentations certainly need a goal. There are lots of things to consider. Let's work out what we want to achieve. Before we even put pen to paper or we type into our document, we want to know what we want to achieve from the presentation and what we want the participants, our audience, to do at the end of that presentation. As we've mentioned, the goal of that TED Talk we looked at was to get people to consider whether walking meetings would actually work for them. Different ways to do things that we might just take for granted in the ways that we do it. Better ways, healthier ways, for example. So what do we want our audience to think? Let's follow on that structure about what we want to achieve. Let's create a clear vision. What is it that we want our audience to actually think? Outline the structure of your presentation that people can follow easily. People attend presentations, as we've already kind of worked out, to obtain information. But consider how you want to influence your audience and what thoughts you might need them to take away beside the facts, the concepts, the things you want them to reflect on. What moments in the story can you get them to really, really think about a topic or the facts that you're explaining, and also just the insights that you're dropping in, that you're peppering throughout your presentation. Highlight these and integrate them within your presentation. What do you want people to think? What is it you're trying to influence in terms of people's thinking? It's a great way to start to structure your presentation. Then also the emotive factor. What do you want them to feel? Now, we had the example earlier on. I can't remember. I'm going to have a quick flick through about the school presentations. A couple of people mentioned actually school presentations. It was Tech Rowan, my school farewell presentation. Maybe that was quite emotive. So what do you want people to feel? People love to connect with emotions, to have an emotional connection, perhaps with the speaker or with the topic that they are watching or learning about. So you can influence the way that people feel during your presentation. It really does help to build a rapport. So you can use humor at times. It can lighten the tone of a subject. It can also help your audience relax as well and be perhaps a bit more open to your message. And then personalize the narrative. Again, it's your own story. It's an emotional connection, an experience that you've had. Your audience could then start to actually empathize with you as well. Use personal stories to highlight some of your important ideas. So the better we build a connection, as we build a connection, we can make really dry topics, those topics that might not seem that interesting at first. We can make them interesting when we are building a connection and building some empathy with our audience. We can smile, we can make eye contact as well. We can influence the audience in many ways and invite them to participate. We love participation here at Google Digital Garage as well, because it really helps, like we're building a two-way process. So think about those things. What do you want people to feel? Are you going to try and influence people's emotions and get an emotional reaction from people with the information that you're sharing? So what's the one thing that you want them to take away? Every presentation, what is it that you want people to take away? People's attention spans are not brilliant. So having a main concept is probably a good idea. The thing that you want to endure right the way through the presentation and for them to take away at the end. People's attention spans are quite low. And so therefore, they're not going to remember everything that you've said and how you've said it. The TED Talk, again, let's go back to that, was very clear. The presenter wanted us to take away one thing ultimately, and that was to just be more active in our day-to-day lives. They were talking about walking an extra 20 to 30 miles per week just by doing something differently. So be more healthy. Okay, that's quite a lot of information. So we're starting to really establish a structure and a flow to our presentation. It's all going to come together. This is a great slide to take some notes from. As I mentioned to you, the presentation will be live for the next 24 hours if you need to come back, but perhaps take some notes from slides like these. We've got the backgrounds there. We've got the problem that we're presenting. We've got the solution to the problem we're presenting. And then we're concluding. We're giving people the next steps to take, the next steps to think about. And you'll see that in the structure of this presentation as we work through too. You want to set a clear background. You want to present the issue. What's the challenge here? What's the solution? You're going to find lots of tips in this presentation. And then the conclusion. What can you do next to again, help you with your confidence and for you to start to build some engaging presentations. So underpinning all of that is you need to do some research. Research your topic. It's so key. Identify the most relevant points and then plan. Start to plan and put together your presentation in a way that it's got real flow. Say it out loud, try it out on your family and your friends, start to get a feel for the parts that people really engage with or the parts where you start to see people drift. If you get the opportunity to practice on people, it's such a good way to know whether what you're doing is what you want to achieve at all. And then we need to design it. We want to get our presentation right. We want to design it correctly. We don't want to take away from the content. We don't want things to be perhaps too glary, too colorful. We don't want to distract away from the main messages we're trying to build. So it's really starting to create a balance between the content that you have and perhaps if you are visually presenting it, how it's going to look as well. If you think about a presentation, then the slides, I guess, are actually merely the backup dancers to the presenter and the words that they're using. I think that's a great way to put it. So we want to tell a story for our audience. We're moving on now from telling a story. Think about the type of story that you want to use. Is that origin? Is that future vision, the success or failure or realization? How's that going to work for you? So again, this is the practice. Tell the story for your audience, start to build it up in your mind, run through it again and again, and start to refine the words that you're using. Okay, so we are now coming through to the end of the first part of this webinar. So we've been setting the scene. What are presentations? What are they for? What are they about? That's really important. I'm just going to check to see if any questions have come in. Nothing yet, which is no problem at all. We've got a lot more content to cover, which I'm going to start to work through in a second. But if you think of anything, again, come through to Jo, ask her a question. She's going to answer you because she's great at this topic, great at all of the topics that I've worked with her in, an absolute font of knowledge. And I'll pick up at the next pause for questions if there's anything that I can pick up on too. So let's build some effective presentations. We want to research and structure our thoughts. Let's not forget. So now let's look at the tools that we can use to build and tell our story in an effective way. So choosing our presentation tools depends on a few factors. The main ones are there on the screen. The audience, the message you're trying to convey, and the tools and the technology available. So, your presentation could be a job interview. It could be a performance interview with your boss. It could be to one person. It could be to five. It could be a business meeting or a sales pitch where you might have 10 people. You could be presenting to a conference where you might have 100 people. Think about and understand the environment that you're going to go into. Is it a virtual presentation? Is it a face-to-face presentation? Bring all of these variables together so that you know what's going to be able to reach them and convey your message the best. Now, the message that you're trying to convey is important too. You want to keep all of the different types of people in your audience engaged throughout. You want to engage the senses. So are you going to give them something to look at, something to read, something to listen to, or something to do? A lot of presentations, people say, oh, if you ever look under your chair, there's a pen and a paper, we've got an activity. It breaks up the presentation. It brings people's attention straight back into the room, and it really helps build the momentum. What are we going to do now? What are we going to learn? This is new. This is novel. So keeping your audience engaged and kind of present at all times is something that you can work on, and there are little things that you can do to help achieve that. So then you might need tools and technology. What does that mean? That means maybe a microphone. Does that mean a good laptop? Does that mean that you are ensuring you've got all the right leads with you when you're going to be presenting? Just making sure that you're really, really prepared and that you're kind of looking for anything that could go wrong, looking for those fail safes. What happens on the day if there's no electricity in the venue or your electricity goes down? How are you going to compensate for that? How are you going to make sure that essentially the show can still go on? And in some circumstances, of course, the show might have to stop right there and then. But what are your contingencies? How can you make sure that if something goes wrong that's out of your control, you're in front of a group of people, that you can still carry on with that presentation? A lot of that's going to be learning, research, and practicing. To slide or not to slide? Not every presentation needs slides. You really, really don't. They're not mandatory at all. They are useful in a lot of cases to visually demonstrate some examples and some of the ideas. Again, they are your backing dancers, but you don't have to use slides. There are other aids that you can use. There's some good ones on the screen. I am going to ask Jo if she wouldn't mind sharing a couple of links to some of the tools that you can see on screen there. You've got Mural, which is a great visual aid to help with presentations. You can create some brilliant presentations on Canva. There is most of the tools that you can see there are freemium, so they're going to be free to a certain point. You can do certain things in a limited way. But when you're just getting going, I think these types of tools can be absolutely essential so that you can get a feel for them, see if they work for you. And then if they do work for you, maybe you want to consider upgrading to the paid version that has all of the functionality that you could ever need. But test these things out and try them and make sure they work for you, that they're intuitive for you, and that you feel comfortable using them. So another one, Slido. Use that one myself quite often. Slido gives you the ability to ask questions live online that you can use for a mobile device. You can ask questions and they will come up on the screen as you're presenting. It's a brilliant tool. Or maybe you just need no tools whatsoever. It's just going to be you. Again, it's very dependent on the message you're trying to convey and what it is that you're trying to achieve. So please do test out some of these to see how they illustrate you and how they help you to illustrate your main points. So choose your tool carefully. Many presentations require you to build a presentation using a computer, a tablet, or a mobile. Your device of choice, essentially. So let's look at some of the different software that's available. Now, there are some great presentation tools. A lot of us, I think, probably grew up with things like Microsoft, the Microsoft Suite, but you've got the fantastic Google Workspace that has Google Slides. So Google Slides is an online free collaboration tool where you can work more than one person can actually contribute to Google Slides or Google Docs at a time. So you can collaborate and all work together. It's quite an odd sensation at first to see a document almost creating itself because other team members are in there doing it. But what a great and productive way to build a really nice presentation. So you've got PowerPoint, Microsoft, as we've mentioned before. There is a cut down version available online for free. But again, you can get the full features in the paid version. There's Prezi, P-R-E-Z-I. You can add animations with that one, but that's not a free tool. And for Apple users, we've got Apple Keynote as well. Again, a fantastic presentation tool that you can use. They all have their differences, but they are, however, very, very similar indeed when creating a new presentation. What we're going to do in the next couple of slides is look at Google Slides as an example, just of the key functionality and perhaps some of the reasons why we might like to use it. So it's a presentation editor, and it is in the Google Docs and the kind of the Drive, the overall Google Drive productivity suite. Now, all of the presentations, as I've mentioned, are stored in the cloud, so you never lose your information, and you don't have to then carry around a flash drive either. As long as you've got an internet connection, you can access that information in the cloud, download, present whatever you want to, all over perhaps Wi-Fi or a wired internet connection. So it affords real-time collaboration so that you can share your presentations, build them together as a team, and a revision history is kept. So if any major changes are actually made or changes that you'd like to create later on, you can actually just go back in time pretty much and find the version of the presentation which last represents where you need it to be if something goes wrong. And you can also convert your Google Slides presentations into different formats like PowerPoint, or even print them off onto PDF. So there are lots of ways then for you to download or use the presentation information that you've created as well. So best for working with others, backing up your work quickly, which is always nice. Even if you forget to do it, it's doing it for you, and accessing anywhere online. So really accessible on the go. Now we want to choose a theme. We were talking about how our presentation can look, and Google Slides helps us to do that with its themes function. You can choose from some pre-designed themes to give all your slides the same type of background and styles for a consistent look and feel. That's nice. That can apply it all the way through the slides, so you don't have to change every single slide to fit the way that it's looking. So a theme applies a consistent look, as we've said. It includes different slide types. You've got title slides. You can use section breaks, content slides that have different headings and different types of content. The formatting is all controlled by the theme. So rather than be distracted by all of the technical elements of making something look consistent, it does it for you. That means that you can really, really concentrate on the content. This is a quick demo on screen now of creating custom themes. It's very, very short indeed. I would literally go onto YouTube. Actually, my recommendation would be to go onto YouTube, type in Google Slides, how to create a custom theme, or create a master title, or create a master slide, and there'll be lots of demos to help you to do this and to do it very, very quickly indeed. Now, one of the points I think in terms of any presentation as well, if you're a business, is using it if it is part of your business, or you're representing your business, is to think about your brand, create your slides perhaps with your brand identity on, something which is going to be consistent and runs through, even if that's just a logo. Again, giving you that identity and helping others understand you, your business, what you're about, and helping them to recognize you over time as well. Now, you can make your presentations look really, really fancy. As we've mentioned, you don't always need to do that. You don't really want to distract from the message of your presentation. Okay, so if you've ever used word processing software like Word or Docs, then the toolbar that you can see there may already look fairly familiar to you. Again, a lot of them do look very, very similar indeed. Now, some of the features that you have available to you there, you can change the title of the presentation to reflect whatever you need it to be. You can add a text box, you can insert an image, you can draw lines or shapes, import some of those shapes. You can change the background, you can change the layout, you can change the theme and the transition, all at the click of a button, which will bring down a nice menu for you, giving you all of the options that are available. All very at your fingertips stuff, very intuitive to use. Google Docs, I use it an awful lot now myself in terms of presentations. It is kind of my go-to suite because it is so convenient to use. And of course, if I want someone else's opinion on it, I can just share it with them to their email address and say, can you have a look at that, please? So it's just so convenient in so many ways. Okay. We want our title to be impactful, like anything that we create, even if, if we're doing digital marketing, if we're writing a book, if we're writing a blog. There's nothing more important, I think, in terms of catching people's eyes than making that title impactful. It doesn't have to be massive. Think about a word that's going to capture people's attention. Word, a sentence, a phrase, something that catches the eye, stops people in their tracks and gets them to want to see more. If you're making a presentation that people have already booked, again, that could be the thing that makes them book. It's the title. So think carefully about your title. Making presentations that stick is a good title, as you can see there. So give some thought to that. Think about what is going to really catch people's eye. Another point, which I think over experience over time becomes more and more clear, is that we don't want too much text on a slide. We don't want people having to read too much information. It is going to actually distract them from the content, from the things that are being said. And of course, people don't really want to work too hard. It's really, really true in so many areas of life. People want to be given the information so that they can digest it, so that they can think about it, reflect on it, and come to conclusions about it. So keep the information you've got on screen nice and simple and easy to digest. The demonstration, the example on the right-hand side of the screen, you've got your welcome and you've got 3 bullet points. Using bullet points is a really good way to organize your facts or your key points for each slide. And also it helps the viewer's concentration. Okay, they're telling me 3 different things. They're very clear. This is what I need to take away from this slide. So some presentation top tips. Now be considerate on the number of slides used. There isn't a magic number for this. There isn't a set amount. It's probably a good idea to not have more slides than the amount of minutes that you have for the presentation, because you don't want to have to be rushing too much or getting too many points over in the time that you have. Maybe sometimes you want to dwell on a slide. Maybe you will have on the slide, there's 5 different points on this slide. So I need to be able to take a bit of time for it. So therefore, we don't want to have too many other slides so that I'm just thinking I'm never going to get all of these slides in. Now, we also want people to focus on what we're saying rather than using loads of text, as we said. So think about those bullet points. So keep your bullet points concise. It's not about writing a script. It's about writing concepts, points that you can look at, that you can be reminded of, that you're able to talk about because you've practiced and you've researched and you know your stuff. Think about your font. What does that mean? Well, can your text be read at the back of a room? If it's a big room, is it going to be really, really clear? Is it in the right color? Is it accessible for people who are not as close to that presentation as you are? We want the characters to be clear. We do ideally want quite a plain font, really, rather than a fancy one. Some people have difficulties making out joined up writing, for example. So that, if you use one of those fancy scripts, not everyone might be able to read it or make sense of it. A dark font on a light background is often the easiest way to present your information. We want to vary our content as well. So you might have text, you might have charts, you might have imagery, you could have videos. There's lots of different types of content, again, to keep your audience interested and engaged, and different ways for you to be able to really demonstrate the points that you're trying to make. And then vary the pace of your slides as well. Sometimes you might move quite quickly through a series of points, and other times you might dwell on a story to explore a really important concept. Slowing down, taking a breath, letting people really think about the point you've just made. That they call it a pregnant pause quite often too. Impactful point, pregnant pause. Again, it doesn't have to be that long to really have an impact. Now, if you're running an online presentation, there are quite a few things to bear in mind. This is an online presentation that we're in right now. It's really important to think about your audience in an online presentation because you can't see their body language. I can't see you. I'd love to be able to see you, but I can't see you. So I can't see your body language. I can't make eye contact, and I can't kind of read the room. So if you're going to build a slide deck, you need to choose a tool that can support slide sharing and screen sharing. That's really, really important as well. So there are different ways, again, for online presentations to run. You might be doing a one-to-one session, or you might be thinking about having or needing a platform that enables many, many different viewers at the same time. You need to think about whether you want people to participate, as we do in the chat here. Very, very important to us. Is that going to be important for you? Are you going to want people to be able to have the ability to come on screen and actually contribute to the presentation that you're making or make comments? YouTube Live, on that basis, you're listening, you're interacting via the chat, but you can't actually come on screen in order to contribute. So maybe another platform like Google Meet or Zoom might be one of the platforms to help you to achieve that. Think about what you need, the interactivity you need, and how that's going to be best presented to your audience. We also want to make the technology we're using and the software we're using as easy as possible for our audience too. There's no point having a massively complicated process that there's no tech support for, because you are not in the same room as that person. You can't lean over them, go onto their laptop and just say, press that, do that, do that. So you want an accessible platform with clear and easy to use joining instructions, for example. And also cost is another element as well. You can run an online presentation for a very, very small cost whatsoever. You don't have to hire out that conference room. You don't have to hire out those meeting rooms. So that can play a part in it too. Think overall about what's going to help you achieve the thing that you want to achieve. But if you are running on a low budget, then perhaps an online presentation where you send out the invites by email could be the way to do it and the way to go for you as well. So again, hopefully lots of things that are helping to inspire you to not only run these presentations, but to do them in the most cost-effective way, to do them in the most participatory ways for your audience, to get people involved, to start building communities, to help people to empathize with you, all of the things that we've been covering as we've been running through this presentation. Remember, your audience are key. You're doing this presentation for an audience and to get a point across. So always think about your audience's needs. All right, so we're going to come into the second pause for questions now. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if anything's come in. Yes, it has. So Marianne Taylor, can you transfer a PowerPoint presentation to Google Slides? And if so, how can I do this? So yes, you can indeed. I know that Joe's probably answered this in the chat, but you can put the PowerPoint document in the Google Drive and open it there, and it will open it as a Google slide. And then Danon Zahuri Arsen, can we use how can we use telling story presentation to show figures? So yeah, you can use an origin story. Again, I'm sure that Joe has probably answered this already for you, but you can use an origin story to show how the performance figures started off compared to how they are now. So a really good way to use those types of stories that we looked at the beginning of the presentation. You can show a progression, how we got from where we under target previously, what steps we took to get ourselves back on target. We could also use a future vision story to show how the performance figures could be changed in the future, perhaps by demonstrating a strategy on how we can do this, how we can get there, the steps that we want to implement. So thank you so much for your questions indeed. I really, really appreciate those. And yeah, love the interaction. Keep them coming. I can see that, yeah, you're keeping Joe really, really nice and busy in the chat. That's the way we like it. So keep that going as we move into the third part of the presentation now. So let's go. And actually, that's not clicking forward for me. Let's try that again. There we go. All right. So this is the third part, the boosting our presentation skills, helping us to get the confidence, presentation techniques that we can work on to become really, really effective. We want a consistent structure. We've decided whether we're going to be using slides or not. We're going to be thinking about now more about our gestures, our facial expressions, our voice, how we're coming across, the passion that we're portraying about our topic as well. Now, this is all based on the fact that your audience is there to engage with you, not necessarily just on a slide deck. It's there. The person is the important key factor. So think about what type of presenter that you want to be. Once you've built your presentation, you need to know how you're actually going to deliver it. So I guess go back to the question I asked you right at the beginning of the presentation. Think about the best and worst presentations that we had. Now, the difference between the two is the person that's actually doing the talking and how they're doing the talking. Some people believe that good, confident speakers have got some type of natural gift. I don't really believe that. I think that presenting is a skill that can be learned. It all really does with a lot of things. It just comes down to practice. It can be learned. It's a skill that can be bettered and bettered over time as you really start to refine your technique. So we want to adapt to our audience, as we've already mentioned. We want to read that room. We want to understand who we've got. We want to think about the topic and why our audience might be interested in that in the first place. So we want to think about the space that we're presenting in. We want to understand that crowds are just individuals and groups of people. So if the presentation that you're working on is making sense for one person, it's going to make sense to many. That's a really nice way to just perhaps tone down the impact of thinking I'm speaking to so many people. It doesn't really matter. In some ways, you're talking to one person. The presentation is built to be as effective for as many people as it possibly can be, but the messages will be understood. The key messages will be understood by all. Now, I do like to think about this in exactly this way. Online especially, it's like I'm delivering this presentation to one person and that I'm trying to talk to them directly, because I am essentially talking to every single person that's watching this independently of the others. It's an odd concept in your mind, but you're presenting to a person. It's really about the information that you're conveying. So this helps us with the audience participation. If we're in a big room or a big hall of people, then we want to interact with the audience. We don't want to shy away from the people that are there to see us. You can ask people for a quick show of hands. You can ask questions. You can get people involved. How many people have watched a really great presentation before? And hopefully everyone will put their hand up for that. Stand up if you like a particular thing. Again, those small things that we can get people to do, really engage them, and really it helps people to feel like they're actually involved. It's a conversation. You want to build a conversation. What you don't want to do is obviously talk at them non-stop. You want to give people the chance to interact, like we've got here. On this presentation with the pause for questions. It gives us a break. It gives us a time to understand where people are at, the things that have sprung to mind whilst you've been delivering the information and the messages that you've been delivering. And it gives us a chance to bring all of those things together and clarify any things that perhaps have been overlooked. Now, questions. We're appreciative for questions. We love questions because, again, exactly as I've just outlined, it helps us to understand where people are at, the grasping of the information that we're conveying. Are we conveying it in the right way? Are we conveying it in a way that people can identify with? So always say thank you for that question, because it's fantastic that people will interact with you. Follow up on those questions. There might be more information. There might be places you can signpost people to for further research. Build on the question, build on your understanding of the question and how you can help people further. One of the worst things that you can actually do, though, is make the answer up. So don't panic if you get a really difficult question. They come up every now and again. It's if you can't answer a question right there and then, say, look, we'll find a mechanism to be able to get back to you. I might need to do a bit more research on that exact question myself before I can adequately convey the answer to you. That's fine. That's so much better than making the answer up, because you lose your credibility immediately. Another thing that's really important about your audience is to listen to them, to listen to the comments that they make, and to ensure that you're understanding their appreciation of what's going on, and acknowledge people. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your comments. That's really insightful. There's such a lot of experience to share. All of the information on this presentation is not mine. We've all got our own experience, our own fears, our own confusions, our own assertions that we can make about any topic. So the bigger knowledge base that we can build around any topic, the better everyone in that presentation is going to be when it's completed, because it's a wealth of experience. So look to interact with your audience to build up that huge wealth of knowledge. Really, really important. And it's such a key fact, I think, when it comes to presentations. Now, we do want to avoid content overload. Short presentations, we need to think about our audience and show our audience that we are, again, valuing their time. I think that's absolutely key. So tailor the content to the people in the room, as we've said. If you have a plumber in the room, then maybe use plumbing businesses as an example. If you're talking to a sports conference, make your examples sports related. Make it relevant to your audience. Again, very similar to any type of digital marketing. You need to make your messages relevant for your audience in order that they do connect with them and that they engage with those messages too. Now, we want to focus the 3 key things for each slide. So help your audience to take away the key elements of information that you find important within that particular slide. That's a really important one to focus on. Again, that content overload, you don't want that waffle where you might be going off on a different tangent. Keep the information concise, succinct, and relevant to the goals that you're trying to achieve, the goals that you set for that presentation when you thought about how you were creating it. And then have a pause, take a breath for each slide, compose yourself, give people time to think as well. It's just that, give people time to think, to absorb the information, and for them to start to think about more questions that they might have on the topic. Now, your voice is a powerful tool. Mariah Carey on screen, what an amazing voice she has. She can regulate and modulate, and she really can, well, her tone and her range is supreme. So we can play with our voices and use our voices in different ways to help us to get our message across. We can alter the volume, we can alter the style, we can alter the tone of our voice. Be conscious of your tone. You don't want to talk in a monotone. You might want to speak loudly to accentuate certain points. You might want to draw people in by quietening down the volume or the tone, almost like you're just drawing in the room for a particularly key element. And you can also think about steadying or varying the pace, again, depending on the content that you've got. You don't want to rush through the content. You want to deliver the presentation in a fairly calm and well-paced way, and that will help with your confidence, and it will help you be seen as credible as well. So what's your body language communicating? Body language, that's your gestures that you're using, the stance that you're in, your facial expressions as well. These are all important when people are looking at you. When you're presenting, you want a strong, positive body language where at all possible. It is an essential tool and something you might need to work on, something you might need to stand in front of the mirror and actually practice as well. So express your emotions, connect with your listeners. Practice in front of the mirror, see how you look when you make a certain point, when you make an important point, how you use your hands to perhaps, again, gesticulate. Not too much, not too little. Again, perhaps it is about just driving the point home and making sure people connect with where you are at any particular point. Now, do we want to be happy or sad, nervous or confident, honest or trustworthy? These are some key body language factors. We want to, again, this is a great thing to practice, how we look when we're feeling happy, how we look when we're feeling sad, how we look when we're nervous. Perhaps we close up and clench ourselves a little bit more and we become a bit more constricted, confident, a wide open pose or stature. Think about how people do it. Think about what you see on TV. And again, maybe think about going on to sites like TED conferences, TED Talks, and seeing how the presenters demonstrate their body language to get their points across. These are things that we can learn, things that can really, really help us as we move along, because we do want to come across as honest. We want to come across as trustworthy. We want to make sure that people find us credible, the information that we're sharing credible, and that they want to hear more from us as time moves on. Power poses really work. With this talking about the stances. Now, before I do a presentation or deliver one of these, then if I get a bit nervous, I look like a superhero. Do the Wonder Woman pose. You see it on TV quite a lot with people. They're wide open stance, legs on an open stance. We're looking confident. We've got nothing to fear from what we're about to do. Look at how performers come on stage. Do it for a couple of minutes. I mean, personally, one of the things I do is I jump around. I do actually jump around for a couple of minutes to get that excess energy out, to loosen myself up, because you just want to feel comfortable. And it really does help you feel like you can take on the world. So be mindful of your stance. These are key tips. Be mindful of the movements that you make. If you're on stage, you're moving up and down, left and backwards and forwards and front stage. Is that going to be distracting to your audience? Again, limit the distractions, keep them to a minimum, and make sure that you are not kind of taking away from the points that you're trying to make by any unnecessary movements. Make sure that everything you're doing is connecting. So make eye contact with your audience. If you're delivering to a camera, as I'm doing now, then look in the camera, and because that's giving everyone eye contact. It's a really nice thing to do. It's really, really important as well. Think about your bad habits, capture them. If you say a lot, try and work that out over time. That's why listening and practicing is really useful, because then you can eliminate words that you might repeat too often. Happens to us all at times, unfortunately, but we can work on that. There it is. That's the most important bit. Practice, practice, practice. There's nothing better for your confidence than to practice. You will look professional. You will look confident. You will look credible. Just be ready, try it out. Get used to how you sound, get used to how you look, feel comfortable with that. That's going to be the thing that's going to help move you along very, very quickly. That's the thing that is going to build over time. Even the Beatles weren't that confident initially when they went on stage. They became masters by going on stage a lot. They used the outlier concept of practicing. They were doing 15-hour sets on stage, for 4 or 5 days a week with minimal breaks in between. They became masters at their art. And that's something we can do. We can all become masters if we practice enough. So some key recap points. Think about adapting to your audience, understand your audience, know who's coming to see you, why they're going to be there, what it is they're looking to learn from what you have to deliver. Think about your voice, how you accentuate yourself, the volume, the tones that you use. Then think about your body language, how you want to express yourself, how you want to be seen. Again, look at other people's presentations for that. Again, you might well then find some good examples and some not so good examples that you might like to either pick up for yourself or avoid. And then, as we've said so many times now, practice your performance. Give yourself time. Don't rush. Don't do it all last minute if it's avoidable. If you can possibly give yourself a bit of time, a few days to build up, make yourself feel nice, confident, and there in the moment without thinking, I haven't practiced enough, I'm dreading it. You want to go into these things looking forward to doing them, that you're going to enjoy them. You're going to get a bit of fun and pleasure out of doing them as well. Okay, that is a lot of information, but I really hope that you've enjoyed some of the overarching information, some of the tips, some of the confidence tips, some of the ways to make yourself essentially a better presenter. We are moving into the final pause for questions. I can see that Joe has been doing an astounding job in the chat, and that you have been keeping her very, very busy. I can see a few nice comments have come in as well. The backup dancers is a good analogy. I think the backup dancers is a good analogy. It's really about you and making sure you know what you're doing. Everything else around you, everything, all of the materials that you're using, all of the tools that you're using are essentially backup for the message. Are you using those origin stories, those future visions? Where are you positioning yourself? What's going to be important? What are your audience going to appreciate the most? Okay, so that is almost everything from me. What are your next steps? I'm just going to give you one step. Really, that's practice. Revisit this webinar. Look at the key steps to building a great presentation. Then look at how you can improve your presentation style, and then do that practice in the mirror, practice in front of your friends and your family till you feel really good about what you're doing. Go on to the Google Digital Garage site, g.co/digital garage. Sign up for some more of our webinars. Lots and lots of great digital learning on there to help you and your business grow as well. Again, this is a perfect module to integrate into that learning. And then don't forget to check out the career certificates that are available from Google, gwo.gle/career search UK. Fantastic way for you to up your qualifications, to get some almost on-the-job training there, IT support, project management, data analytics, UX design. Job-ready skills. Go and see if it's what you'd like to do. Really flexible way to do it. You set your own deadlines, set your own times, and you work to a schedule. So enjoy that if you do sign up. And all that really leaves me to say is thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this afternoon. If you'd like to leave us some feedback on gwo.gle/digital garage feedback, we'd be most grateful. We'd love to get your feedback. We'd love to know how we can improve and how we can improve our training and our learning for you over time. So as we've mentioned, there's lots of different webinars available. Sign up for some of those. Now, there's lots of webinars available on g.co/digital garage, same as the way that you would have booked up for this webinar now. So sign up for as many of those as you'd like to, as many times as you'd like to as well, until you feel confident with a topic. And then hopefully I'm going to see you again on another Google Digital Garage webinar. So have a fantastic day, and hopefully I will see you all soon. Goodbye.